Hello everybody, and welcome back to another random video. Now, today is going to be an interesting one, because I'm going to be talking about Star Wars. Now, shocking, I like Star Wars, and, I have I'm on a break, and I've been binge watching it for a very long, for a couple days. But because I've been binge watching it, I was kind of like looking through some of the old movies and some of the reviews for newer movies and stuff like that. So today I'm going to be talking about not the prequels, the sequels, like The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker, that sort of thing. And I'm going to be talking about those. Now, if you do like the sequels, I suggest you leave the video because I'm going to be heavily criticizing the sequels because they're awful. Because they are flat out awful. Even the original creators and even George Lucas himself has said I don't like the sequels. If I ever mess up and say prequels, just know that I mean the sequels. Because yeah, I always mess those up. But this is just going to be a rambling video of, why, just the analytical side and the plot side of why, are the sequels so horrible? Why were they so horribly received? Now, I will say that The Force Awakens is probably one of the best movies of the sequel trilogy because it has, a comprehensive storyline and has good characters, and it obviously just makes sense. It just does. And the rest of the movies just don't make sense. They have characters, but they don't have the plot to go along with those characters. And I don't think they ever have, and I don't think they ever will, because I have heard a couple of rumors floating around that they're going to just completely erase the sequel trilogy, and that they're going to create new ones, or they're going to make other ones that aren't related to the main trilogies. And a lot of people are saying that oh, it's canon, but it really doesn't matter. It's none of that makes sense, because even in the first, the quote-unquote first episode, so if you don't already know, Star Wars, when A New Hope was first released, and then the prequels, because if he released the prequels before, the prequels are more just a storytelling, while the original trilogy is more action, more, it has a good balance of action and storytelling, whereas the prequels have a lot more storytelling than action. They still have action, obviously, Revenge of the Sith, but, just a little less. So, essentially, The Phantom Menace, the first episode, even though it came out after Return of the Jedi, literally Qui-Gon says, "He is the chosen one, you must see it."
He is the chosen one. You must see it.
He's talking about Anakin there, young Anakin. And he ends up being the chosen one if you really think about it, really hard for a second, and just pause and think about it. Then you kind of know. You kind of understand that Anakin was the chosen one from the very beginning, and he ended up being one because he brought balance by throwing Palpatine down an elevator shaft, which somehow he comes back from that. And we'll talk about that later, and ends up dying himself, which brings balance to the Force, and, yay! Let's celebrate, the whole galaxy is happy. But then, of course, Disney had to ruin it, because they ruin everything for profit, and they brought back Star Wars. Now, as I said before, I remember exactly going to the movie theater and seeing Star Wars The Force Awakens. I was so happy with it. It didn't have any of the original characters, which did kind of disappoint me at first, but it was probably one of the best of the sequel trilogy. And then I remember The Last Jedi, I think, was the next one, and I remember getting on Twitter and seeing the reviews of it. And then the next one, Rise of Skywalker, I remember seeing those views, and oh my god, they are so bad. Even just, not even on Twitter, just, look at Rotten Tomatoes, for example. It was awful. The ratings were horrible for both of them. And The Force Awakens, like I said, was probably one of the best. Because it had a comprehensive storyline, and it also didn't mess with the storyline that the wonderful George Lucas already made. Because the whole point of Anakin being the chosen one is because he ends up being the chosen one anyway, just not in the way that everybody would have liked it. But then in the sequels, they completely ruin that by bringing back Palpatine, even though he was thrown down an elevator shaft. You don't come back from that. And they're like, oh yeah, but he just transferred his consciousness. Well, that doesn't make any sense either, because it's at least 20 years since that all happened, and kind of like gone for good after 20 years of being dead. Literally, even in the movie, they're like, somehow Palpatine returned.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
That is the exact way that they say it. They just say somehow. They don't say, oh, this is how it happened. That's what movies are supposed to do. They are supposed to explain what happens in their plots. That's the whole point of a movie, is explaining things. Point is, the sequels just do not make any sense as far as the just overall, like, the whole point of it just doesn't make sense to the whole plot of the rest of the movies, because the whole movies, like the prequels and the original, was meant to say Anakin is the chosen one, his child is going to bring him back from the dark side, he's going to end up bringing balance to the Force, and all that. But the one thing the sequels did correctly is assuming that Luke made a Jedi training sort of thing and started training some young Jedi. That is something that he would 1000% do. The one thing he would not do is turn on his own nephew and try to kill him because he sees too much of a Sith in him. Which, I mean, obviously he ends up being right. But his whole way of going about that is not Luke. That whole way of going about that is more his father speaking, because usually if somebody does something wrong, you just say, hey, I'm gonna let you go. But, I mean, like, that whole thing just did not seem like Luke. And Luke was honestly an asshole in The Last Jedi, because he was constantly insulting Rey. He was like burning Jedi texts that for some reason now exist, and they weren't on Coruscant, which is weird. They were on this random ass planet with one singular island that Luke was hiding out in for years. Which, why would he go away? I don't know. Like, yes, I get he's like, oh, I failed, I didn't teach this person this and this. But, like, if you didn't turn on him, he wouldn't have turned on you. It's like, it's a 50-50 thing. And like I said, he wouldn't have done it anyway. So none of that matters. None of it is like, the Jedi texts should have been on Coruscant, because that's where all the main things happen. That's where the Old Republic was. That's where, you know, everything with the Jedi took place. So, and they even literally had a library on Coruscant. So it makes sense that the Jedi text would be in that virtual library. But no, there's these random texts out in the middle of who knows where, just sitting there, and Luke burns them. Which, that doesn't make any sense. And then Yoda approves of it. He is the oldest Jedi ever. He has seen so many types of Jedi, so many types of people. He has trained so many types of people, yet he is okay with Luke burning the Jedi texts. And that just shocks me.
Free the text, the Jedi. I'm gonna burn it down.
And the fact that he also could somehow project himself to to a random planet, which has never been the case ever, has never even been mentioned in any of the, you know, things that are canon in the Star Wars universe. That has never ever been mentioned, that somebody could transport a version of themselves to a different planet by using the Force, which is like, it's weird, because like, who, it just doesn't make any sense, because it has never been mentioned that, and stormtroopers can apparently fly.
They fly now!
Which, if it's a new order, like the First Order, then yes, awesome. But like I said, it just doesn't make sense in the plot. So, if they were to make a completely separate movie or movies separate from the original trilogy, like the prequels and the original, like those sets of movies, awesome. That'll be fine. Whatever. It doesn't hurt Star Wars, the original movies at all. But the fact that they did it in relation to all those 6 movies just doesn't make any sense to me, because none of it makes sense in the plot. I don't care if you like them, I don't care if you hate them, it just doesn't make any sense in the plot, because the whole plot of those 6 movies was, like I stated before, Anakin is the chosen one. He brings balance to the Force, whether it was a way that the Jedi liked or not, and he eventually brought balance, and Luke went on to be the greatest Jedi ever in history. Like, that was basically. And then Darth Vader went down in history as, the dude who saved his son and came back from the dark side. And that, like, all of that was the whole plots of the 6 movies. But adding on those 3 just completely derails what George Lucas wrote. And then also the fact that Rey's a Palpatine, yet Leia trusts her with her lightsaber and her life. Doesn't make much sense, because literally before Leia dies, she's like, "Here's my lightsaber. Finish my training." That's not the point of Leia having a lightsaber. The point is having 2 of the most powerful twins in the galaxy to fight side by side as Jedi. That is the whole point of Leia having a lightsaber. But then she passes on to a Palpatine, which how Emperor Palpatine has a granddaughter at all, or a daughter at all, who knows, because he obviously did not have any in the prequels. He had no girlfriend, he had nothing that he could possibly get pregnant, and he obviously was way too old to get anybody pregnant in the original trilogy, and he was too busy with his, awesome Death Star to have a relationship. So none of that makes sense, that he would have a granddaughter at all, he would have a daughter at all. None of that makes sense. And the fact that Leia trusts a Palpatine, the whole thing that was the whole person that was haunting the galaxy for so many years, she is okay with passing that on to a possible Sith Lord. Like, obviously it doesn't end up happening with Rey, but it could have happened, and that's the issue. Kylo Ren, he's so weak. He's just the weakest dude ever. I play a game called Galaxy of Heroes, and he is weak in that game, and he's also weak in the original trilogy. Not in the original trilogy, the sequel trilogy. Because he is like, "I will finish what you started," and he's like, his emotions take over him too much. Obviously, Sith are meant to control with their emotions. They're meant to control with anger, hatred, all those bad emotions that none of us want to feel. But he uses them too much to the point where he's a bad dude. Like, to the point where he is an awful villain. Like Darth Vader. He would sometimes fight with his anger and hatred and let that get the better of him to help him win a fight. But Kylo Ren constantly used that to the point where he was just a pouty little gremlin who couldn't get his way. He would slash a command center. Like, that's insane to assume. It's just, he's so weak. He's an awful villain. And the fact is that Adam Driver, Daisy Ridley, all of these talented actors that they had in these movies have so much potential, but they wasted it all on these awful characters. And that's the issue, is that, number one, it doesn't make sense. Number two, they wasted so much potential and so much good talent. Number two, it's all just a cash grab. Literally, it's so blatantly obvious, because Disney has been known to do reboots and do certain things just to get more cash off of their most popular shows or movies or whatever. And that obviously makes them more money, because it's like a nostalgia thing. Like the reboot of That's So Raven. Obviously, good show. Also a huge moneymaker on Disney's end. And everybody's like, "Oh my god, it's a reboot." But it's all for their interest and their money. Literally, that is all that Disney will ever do, is take into consideration their money and take it and run with it. Because they know everybody likes Star Wars. It'll make sense. We'll have great ticket sales. We'll have great merch sales. It'll be awesome. But, I mean, granted, those things all did happen, but that's only because we all wanted so desperately to like this new trilogy that we just kind of threw all of our expectations out the window and all of our standards, essentially, out the window, and we were okay with the fact that they completely just did a disjustice to the original 6. They completely, like, I don't care if they delete it or whatever, it's still a sin that it exists in the first place. It literally is. And anyway, I just wanted to say that because, like I said, I've been binge watching Star Wars. Like, I just watched A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back yesterday, and I just really wanted to say, hey, why? It's all awful, and I think I probably already, like, when they first came out, I think I recorded something similar to this, but I just didn't have the balls to release it, but now it's a couple years later, I put a disclaimer at the beginning of the video, it's all okay. So, anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, do make sure to like, a comment, and subscribe to join the Awkward Team today, and let me know your opinions in the comments below. I'd love to have a little chat with y'all about the trilogies, and I'll see you in the next one. So long for now, my Awkward Team.